asking a position by position comparison. Who is better, 2025 Indiana or 2019 LSU? The two best teams I've seen in my lifetime. So, what I went ahead and did here, got it up on the board. I just got to go ahead. We're going to move ourselves to the side so that we have a better view of the board. So, well, we can go ahead and debate and go line by line, starting with the quarterback position and go all the way down to the head coach. Got to make sure the CEO of the college football team is accounted for. So I'm going to start with the easiest here. And I don't know if you guys have any objections. Listen, when you talk about 2025 Indiana, I love Fernando Mendoza. He's a dog. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. But Joe Burrow was just something else, man.
Yes.
That's the last time that we've seen him with a competent offensive line. And every defense that he came across just tore him apart relentlessly. It was barbecue chicken, all 15 games that he played. Obviously, the big edge got to go to 2019 LSU when it comes to that quarterback position.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have the stats up in front of you, but I do. So Fernando Mendoza this season threw for 3,535 passing yards. For context, Joe Burrow threw for 5,671 yards in 15 games, in one less game than Fernando Mendoza. 41 touchdowns for Fernando. Joe Burrow threw 60. 72% completion percentage for Fernando, 76.3 for Joe Burrow, with a astronomical 202 passer rating on the season. 202. He is arguably the greatest college football player of all time with that stat line.
And one of the things that not a ton of people talk about is how the game operates now. A lot of it is the fact that there were more possessions per game. I mean, Joe Burrow has over 150 more attempts than Fernando Mendoza, but with all of that, even still considered pure quarterback versus quarterback, pure arm talent, pure football IQ, Joe Burrow is easily the choice here. Fernando Mendoza is a great system quarterback. You might think negatively with that description, saying that he's a system quarterback, but he is. He is a very solid quarterback within the Indiana system. I think he's overrated. I don't think he should be the first pick in the NFL draft. Doesn't mean I don't think he can be an NFL quarterback, but you're talking about probably one of the best players ever, like Reed said, versus Fernando Mendoza. Love the guy, all the heart in the world, all the work ethic there to become a very, very good quarterback in the NFL. Hands down, I think it's Joe Burrow very, very easily.
Oh, all right. So that's probably going to be one of the easier ones that we got. Obviously, I think if anyone picked like Fernando Mendoza over over Joe Burrow, that is I don't like to use the word clickbait, but that would have been sheer unadulterated clickbait, and I like to have spicy takes, but I like to have some substance behind them. But
go back and watch the tape. That's all I'm going to say. It was unbelievable.
Well, would you even go so far as to Google him?
I get that. I understand that.
Hey, by the way, he did win, if you haven't seen.
He did win. That is true. All right. So next group, going down to our running backs right now. We got a 1-0 edge in favor of 2019 LSU. Talking about the running backs, and listen, maybe it's a little bit on the spicy side. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I'm curious what you hear what the live chat thinks. I'm actually going to go with Indiana here for the running backs. And while I think Clyde Hilaire is a little bit better than any of the running backs on Indiana's roster, Indiana did have 2 1,000-yard rushers over the course of this season. Roman Hemby, who got a lot more of the publicity with over 1,100 yards on the ground. But then Keelan Black as well, with less carries, also finished with over 1,000 yards rushing on the ground as well, over 5.5 yards per carry. And so that makes me really think I really want to roll with LSU, or not LSU, excuse me, Indiana, in terms of the running backs, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think in terms of the running game.
Yeah, I definitely am going to lean Indiana. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire had the more impressive singular performance. I mean, you're talking about 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, in an offense that had multiple 1,000-yard receivers. It's just, I mean, the caliber of offense we're talking about in 2019 LSU. But if you're talking about room, I mean, Hemby, best RB1 maybe on any playoff team, maybe other than Mark Fletcher. Kalen Black, best change of pace back, best red zone back, maybe on any team in the playoff. It's both over 1,000 yards by the end of the season. It took 16 games for Black to get there, but he was there. I mean, you're talking about 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns amongst those two. I would probably lean Indiana.
I am also going Indiana, solely because they have two backs that ran for over 1,000 yards, whereas Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the only back on LSU at that time to rush for over 1,000. So I think they were a very good 1-2 punch, an underrated all-time 1-2 punch, just solely because they were both transferred into Indiana. Roman Hemby from Maryland, Kalen Black followed Signetti from JMU. So they both took a step up to the level that they played at. And I personally thought Roman Hemby was an underrated portal acquisition last offseason. I thought he was really good for Indiana, so that obviously, played out to fruition. So I'm also going Indiana here for the running backs.
All right, so that does mean that we have indeed a point for Gryffindor, as 2025 Indiana is going to officially get themselves on the board. So we got ourselves a tie ball game between 2025 Indiana and 2019 LSU.
To be fair, though, if we can go 1-1, but if we're talking about quarterback, there should be like 7 or 8 pluses for LSU, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but we can keep going one by one. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. It was definitely a more significant edge, like in terms of quarterbacks. And this is no disrespect to Fernando Mendoza. I mean, he's an excellent football player. I mean, Joe Burrow is just him though. But the thing is, I only have enough in the budget for one plus sign at a time. So so that's why like we only get the one plus instead of multiple pluses for I guess a BTA type experience when it comes to these positional groupings. But anyhow, moving on, got ourselves some receivers, wide receivers and tight ends. I decided to group them into one because I didn't feel like splitting them out, to be honest with you. So receivers, I got to go with LSU. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
I mean that the fact that those two were on the same team,
that's pretty cut
at the same time
combined.
Yeah, it's just
on top of a 1,500-yard back.
That's pretty cut and dry. Yeah,
38 touchdowns.
Yeah, because I mean, like, just listen to what these two did. I mean, Jamar Chase in that 2019 campaign, 1,780 yards receiving. And then Justin Jefferson was the second receiver. He was the second leading receiver in yards. He had over 1,500 yards. For context, like, there was not a single receiver on Indiana's end that reached 1,000 yards. And if we're being real, I mean, Omar Cooper, I love him. He made an incredible catch in that Penn State game. Recover your ears for this one. He made an incredible catch in that Penn State game. But at the same time, I mean, he's no Justin Jefferson. He's no Jamar Chase. So I think this one's pretty cut and dry here. Gotta go with the receivers of LSU. And if I had it in the budget, there'll probably be multiple pluses there. I don't know if it's that particularly close.
I'm looking at it too. We all just forgot that Thaddeus Moss played on this LSU team and had 500 yards.
I didn't.
I mean, he was their fourth receiver. Thaddeus Moss.
Yeah, it's I remember Thaddeus Moss, but he was a strong, legendary Bengals practice squad player. You know, there will be no Thaddeus Moss disrespect on this show. And if there is, I will walk over to where you're physically located and write a strongly written letter about why you're wrong.
Also, don't forget Terrence Marshall Jr. Had some big games,
Yeah, him
especially
too.
had some big plays, especially in the playoff that year. Yeah, this is pretty. This
You
is
could,
pretty.
I mean, on that LSU team, you could probably go to their 15th wide receiver, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy." I mean, that's just the kind of
Probably.
team we're talking about. Probably the best offensive team ever.
Yeah, definitely like the best offensive team ever. But now, so LSU got a 2-1 lead. Now we move on to that offensive line between Indiana and LSU. I actually think Indiana's offensive line was better over the course of the year. And it's really interesting to think about. LSU had some incredible playmakers, which helped the offensive line a lot because when guys are getting consistently open, that certainly helps. But even though Indiana did have the same level of playmakers and they did have the same level of quarterback that LSU had, Indiana, even though they played in one more game than the 2019 LSU team, Indiana actually allowed 5 less sacks than LSU did, which I thought was really fascinating. That was not something that I expected to read when I was researching earlier today. So going off of that and how they constantly looked at the line of scrimmage throughout the regular season, I actually want to lean Indiana for the offensive line.
And I think that's indicative of the kind of team Indiana was. You know, RPO heavy, ground game heavy, 2 reads for Mendoza. That's just the kind of team they were. They relied on that offensive line, and that's why they were successful. And that's why a lot of teams are successful in this common age where you don't have Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, the 2 best NFL wide receivers on your team. So you're relying on the offensive line to essentially be your entire offense. Because if you give Fernando Mendoza time, if you open up gaps for running backs, you're not going to have any issues. Whereas back in 2019, really, you just needed 4 wide receivers from Miami and tell them, hey, we'll find you. Just take off. We will hit you. Joe Burrow, he's going to hit you. Okay, that was the game plan back then. Indiana's offensive line played more of a heavy role. And that's why I think they were efficiency-wise very, very successful this year.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off what Colton said. It really depends on your preference, like I guess game plan wise, like the style of play you want. Indiana was dominant in the run game. They averaged 213 rushing yards per game, 5.2 yards per carry. So all of that relies on the offensive line. Obviously, they were one. I know I said this on Thursday too when we were talking about the championship game recap and just Indiana season in general. They were one of the most efficient and clinically sound offensive lines you will ever watch play football. Every assignment they were on, run blocking, pass blocking, they were just a thing of beauty if you love like watching the offensive and defensive lines. So as for LSU, I think I'm going to give them a slight edge here just solely because you are protecting Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow would not have been able to throw for 5,600 yards if he didn't have a good offensive line. I get it. Back then, it's totally, we've 4 stud receivers. They're down there somewhere, and Joe's just going to chuck it down to you, I am going to lean LSU solely because Joe Burrow could not have that productive of a season if it wasn't for that offensive line. So it's a slight edge. I love that Indiana offensive line, mainly Pat Coogan. I know Colton had him in his top 50 players of the season. Unbelievable to transfer from Notre Dame. Only give up 4 pressures all year is unbelievable. So I love both these offensive lines, but I'm giving the slightest edge to LSU.
Yeah, and I think like Patrick Coogan, I know you talked about him like just now, but I remember back in the previous transfer portal period, that was not somebody that was getting talked about very often over the course of the previous offseason, but really turned into one of the fundamental pieces. You want to talk about not only someone that's a really good offensive lineman, but really has incredible leadership as well. And I think any NFL team would be very happy to have them on their team whenever like it's time for him to go and play in the NFL. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna call that one a push. So here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna go ahead. Don't mind me while I do some administrative work on the back end. So yeah, definitely like very, very contested. But I mean, both of these offensive lines are very good and extremely talented. Now we go to that opposite line of scrimmage, though. We go to that defensive line. Now, famously, because both of these offenses were so good, it was easy for both of these defenses to be able to tee off and rush the quarterback, forcing other teams to constantly be one-dimensional because of how dangerous both of these offenses were, but doing it in different ways. But the more that I sat back and look at it, even though LSU might have had the more talented pass rushers per se. At the same time, though, I look at Indiana's pass rushers, they actually turn out to be more productive, right? Looking at Indiana's pass rushers versus LSU. Yes, as we already mentioned, Indiana did play that additional game because of the fact that they played in a 12-team playoff, while LSU played in a 4-team playoff. But Indiana was actually able to get 9 more sacks in this LSU defense. A defense for LSU, which as great as that team was, it wasn't an elite defense by any means where, Indiana definitely had a very elite defense. So I'm actually going to also lean for defensive line. I'm going with Indiana here too, just because of how well they were able to get after the quarterback over the course of the season.
And you're talking about an Indiana team where their best defensive linemen, and specifically the defensive line, not the whole team, the defensive line lost their best pass rusher before the playoff. Stephen Daly.
Yeah.
Had 19 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. I'm going to have to go with Jake here. I think Indiana's defensive line specifically was a lot better than LSU's. We're going to get to the next batch of players in a second. I think that is the reason they had a ton of success on the defensive side of the ball that year, but we'll save that for the next part.
Yeah, I think this is pretty clearly Indiana's defensive line, just solely because they were a more collective unit, as opposed to what Jake said earlier. LSU had a lot of NFL-ready guys in their own right, but Indiana's defensive line was a unit, as a more collective unit. In the words of Fernando Mendoza, we were just a group of scrappy guys, a bunch of misfits. And yeah, Indiana's defensive line was pretty good. They definitely would not have anywhere close to the amount of success they had this year if it wasn't for that defensive line. And also shout out to Mikhail Kamara from my hometown. So shout out to him.
Shout out Mikhail Kamara. He's not from my hometown, but just shout him out.
Also because he's awesome. And he blocked a punt in a national championship. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a core memory, it's funny, when you so whenever someone is laying on their deathbed and they're actually pass away, no heartbeat, the brain still remains alive for 7 minutes and plays basically a 7-minute montage of the best moments of your life. I would imagine in those 7 minutes for Mikhail Kamara, that's probably going to be up there as one of the first moments of the montage.
That's going to be in mine, and I didn't even do it. That's how impressive of a play it was. I don't know why y'all are laughing. I'm serious. That's what's going to happen.
First punt blocked for a touchdown in playoff history.
It reminded me. It's cooler because it was in the national championship and it was a more unique play. But it reminded me a lot of Ohio State guy. I forget his name.
Jack Sawyer.
Texas, yes, Jack Sawyer. Fumble 6 versus Texas last year. Very, very crucial.
That championship defining play. Yeah.
And that's going to be my version of listen, I wasn't even the one that was involved in it physically in any way, but that's going to be a core memory for me because I'm a dad, and that was when that game happened. My son was just 1 month old, and I had him in my arms. So he was sleeping, and then I was watching the game, and I was watching that unfold, and it's the best way that you can get hyped without physically making any noise to wake this baby up. I'll never forget that. So that's a core memory of mine. But keeping it moving though, going down to the linebackers though, Colin, I know you hinted at it, and I'm sure you're gonna have some thoughts on it as well. I can't help it. I'm actually really surprised with how much I'm leaning towards Indiana. Just sitting back and look at it group by group. I'm leaning towards Indiana here too. I didn't think I was going to come to this conclusion before I started doing the research, but the way that Raji Hardy and Isaiah Jones, they're arguably the two best players in that defense. I got to roll with Indiana. I'm as surprised as you guys, but I didn't think I was going to do this. But like after I did did some research for the show, I was like, damn, I might have to go Indiana here too.
I mean, that's fair. I would go LSU just because, it partly is in retrospect. We know how good those two linebackers are. But K'Lavon Chaisson, Patrick Queen, arguably the two anchors of that defense. They weren't blowing teams out of the water defensively. They had a great secondary. These two linebackers really anchored that defense down. With a defensive line, that wasn't bad. They weren't bad by any stretch. But to me, these are the two guys on the LSU defense. I know they had secondary, but in terms of the front, they carried a lot of the weight. Whereas, Indiana's linebackers did. They absolutely did. But it's more of a, we're going to dominate you up front. We're going to use the linebackers as plugs. So they're going to get a lot of the gaps that are being provided by the defensive line. And that's not to take away from Indiana at all. I understand why you'd lean Indiana for linebackers, but to me, the impact of these two linebackers for LSU is what makes the difference for me.
I am torn on this one. Just solely because there's a lot more notable names on this LSU linebacking core as opposed to Indiana's, but Indiana's was, once again, as I was talking about their offensive line, their defense, mainly led by the linebackers, was just so efficient in every metric that you look at, defensive statistics wise. So I am torn between this one. If you put a plus for both of them in a tie, I would not even argue. I don't even know if I can lean either side because both these linebacking groups are really good. Also, we haven't mentioned Aiden Fisher's name. Just want to say that we haven't mentioned the leader of the entire defense, Aiden Fisher. So I personally would go plus on both sides. But
yeah, the more I sit back, you can really make a fascinating case for really either. I'm gonna call it a push, so for namesake, but it just goes to show just how good Indiana was this year defensively, because of the notable names that are on this LSU defense that you talked about, Reed, but yet Indiana's right there. It's not head and shoulders better by any means, but you could really make an argument for either 2025 Indiana or 2019 LSU in terms of who had that better linebacking core. So we got 4 advantages for LSU right now for 2019, got 4 advantages for 2025 Indiana. It's getting down to the wire as we get to the last 2 categories, which leads us to the DBs. Oh my word. These DBs, man, they were special this year for Indiana. Not just talking about D'Angelo Ponds, he probably gets the most love. But then you're talking about Lewis Moore, who had 6 interceptions. Amari Farrell had 4 interceptions as well. This passing defense allowed less than 200 yards per game in spite of knowing that, hey, Indiana is going to provide that BTA offensively. Teams are going to have to pass the ball to try to remain in games. But yet, in spite of that, Indiana allowing less than 200 yards passing on a per game basis, sure, you could contribute that to the defensive line instead of linebackers. But the DBs, they gotta be straps as well and put that seatbelt on. And to their credit, they absolutely did as well. Where I look at LSU's, LSU, they certainly played optimistically over the course of the season, but I wouldn't say it's an elite secondary by any means outside of, a Derek Stingley, for example. So I actually leaned Indiana here when I'm looking at these DBs.
I have to disagree, unfortunately.
Okay.
I really like Ponds. I like Indiana's secondary as a whole. I think we'll all remember the D'Angelo Ponds performance, and it's probably freshly on our minds. It was a great performance, especially in the national championship game. That being said, LSU has 2 All-Americans in the secondary. They had another three guys who are essentially locked down. I mean, Stingley, Delpit, those are the two guys. But looking, Christian Fulton, 14 pass defenses, and this is higher volume. This is also a lot higher volume. How it worked for Joe Burrow. You're also facing teams who pass the ball at higher volume than they do now, so you're getting more opportunity for these. But I mean, I really like Indiana's secondary. I really like their ability to play in the run support, which I think was an underrated aspect of that Indiana team this year. But if you're talking about prowess, if you're talking about production, pure production, I have to go with LSU.
Bro, Louis George getting on me in the comments. Reed thinks this is a smile and nod competition. I'm waiting for my chance to speak. I'm waiting for my chance to speak. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Colton. I don't have much to add to that. He basically said exactly what I was gonna say. There's 2 All-Americans in that secondary. You could go 5-6 players deep of how good that secondary was for LSU. The Indiana secondary was very solid for what they were. And again, it is, as exactly like Colton said, it is fresh in our minds. It's the most recent data point that we have. And D'Angelo Pons, for the season that he had, will forever be remembered, as will the rest of the Indiana team. But I think I would personally lean the LSU secondary just solely because of the star names that they did have on that secondary. I mean, they had 2 All-Americans in Delpit and Stingley. So, and they are pretty good players in their own right in the NFL now. So I would have to lean LSU.
All right, so that gets us like about 5-5. Like in terms of Indiana's had 5 categories in terms of either having like a partial agreement or full agreement. Same with LSU. It just shows how incredible 2025 Indiana is and how incredible 2019 LSU is too. The last one that I had was the coach. So we're talking Kurt Zanetti or Ed Orgeron. Boys, at the end of the day, who would you rather have as your head coach? You know, knowing what we know right now, Kirk Zanetti or Ed O?
Just head coach.
Just head coach.
Give me Kurt Zanetti. All of my money. You can have whatever you want.
I want Signetti.
If it's just head coach, honestly, if it was the coordinators also, I was going to go Indiana. But I wanted to bring up some of the LSU coordinators. Dave Aranda was their defensive coordinator in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Joe Brady, he's cool. They had Mickey Joseph, who was one of the best wide receiver coaches in the country at the time. Now, I believe, still the head coach at Grambling.
That's cool.
But even though all of that, I think Indiana has 2 head coaches right now as their coordinators. I think Bryant Haynes easily is going to be a head coach in the next 3 years, or at least should be, if he doesn't want to win the next 3 national championships in a row. I think Mike Shanahan probably will end up being a head coach at a lower level. I really like their offense. I just don't think it's like high octane enough to warrant the Galesh treatment or the Heartline treatment. You know what I'm saying? So definitely would lean Indiana either way, but just head coach. I'm taking out loans. I'm taking out 8 mortgages on a home that I don't even have. It's all on Kurt Zanetti in that aspect for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have to like agree with you. Like if it was just head coach, I would definitely go with Kirk Zanetti as well. But thinking about those coordinators that you talked about, you know, like not just like Joe Barry, but also like Dave Aranda as well. You know, if you go like top to bottom, I mean, you definitely have to like roll with the LSU coaching staff. So like head coach, Kirk Zanetti all the way. I don't think anyone's gonna doubt that. But at the same time, if we're looking at a entire coaching staff holistically, I got to go with LSU as well. So I'm rolling with, I mean, not much more to add. I mean, Colton, everything you said, I mean, took the words out of my mouth, bud.
I have nothing to add. I have nothing to add either. It's Signetti, and I was about to say it's not even close. I was about to say it's not even close, but then I had to remember that Ed Orgeron got all those players there to LSU. So, yeah.
If it was in the budget, I know we talked about quarterback being LSU, but if it was in the budget, I mean, eight green pluses.
Yeah.
Indiana.
Yeah.
How much do we need for one more green plus?
We need one more. We need to like and subscribe. So if you're watching, if you could like and subscribe, that would add an additional green plus in the budget. So that.
Do we take David Buster's card?
Does that say fun is in the cards today?
It does. Good job reading, Reed. Is that why they call you Reed?
That's
this guy. This guy.
One of one.
Officially one of one.
Yeah. But for those of you that are watching in the live chat, definitely want to hear from you guys. Who would you rather take? Would you take 2019 LSU or would you take 2025? Definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you're watching this in the comments section, if you're watching this back after the fact, or if you're in your live chat right now, definitely let us know. I would still roll with 2019 LSU. I think they would be this 2025 Indiana team, but I think it would be a pretty close game. I think LSU. I think it would be like a one possession game, but I think 2019 LSU would pull it out.
I saw a post about this the other day on Twitter. They were asking what the hypothetical spread would be on the game, and I said, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think I said LSU minus 5.5. I think would be the line, but I would hammer LSU in that spread. Hammer.
I think it's just different games now than it was. Like LSU has the ability to spread you out like no other team, bro. Like no other team currently is even capable of doing, just because the talent, there's a bigger talent disparity now than there was back then. So if I really like the defense, I really like Indiana's defense. I think they could get pressure on Joe Burrow. I don't doubt them in that aspect, but there's just so much volume in a 2019 LSU offense.
Dude, this guy Lewis is getting on everybody.
What did I do?
I don't know. Did you push him up in the middle like that?
Probably. I mean, that's one way to do it. There's like three.
I wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah, I just had to throw it up in the chat. No, I mean I would probably agree with Reed though in the sense of like I would probably take LSU minus 5.5, but I don't think it was going to be one of those games where like Indiana is going to slaughter Indiana. At least like this version of like Indiana. Now historically, BTA, right? I think we can all agree on that. But you know, like this year's team, I think it would be an incredibly close game, be a 4-quarter game, but I think it would be one of those like Indiana keeps it close for most of the game, and then like LSU pulls away, and that's how they cover.
I would set the spread at a disrespectful point, and I'll just leave it at that.
A point?
No, at a disrespectful point. Not 1 point. But okay. If I said it out loud, you guys would be like, what? It's just volume. I mean, you can't guard that many NFL players.
LSU minus 19.5?
It might be around there.
I mean, yeah. I also think LSU would just have too many offensive weapons for Indiana to deal with. You're talking about 2 stud NFL wide receivers. I mean, aside from D'Angelo Pons, I couldn't even tell you anyone on Indiana's secondary that would be able to keep up with Jamar Chase or Jefferson. But
yeah. On top of that, they had a back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire who could catch out of the backfield and did. a good amount.
Yep.
It's hard to guard. It's just hard to guard. I don't think there's any team that's equipped to do that in this landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's completely fair. But I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section as well as in the live chat. Who you're taking and what do you think that hypothetical final score is? Definitely want to hear your thoughts in the live chat and in the comment section as well.